Amines. Amines are hydrocarbon derivatives containing a nitrogen bonded to a carbon, and you can have a primary, secondary, or tertiary amines. Which one you have depends on how many carbons the nitrogen is bonded to. So, basically, they all come off of the ammonia structure. So if you replace one of those hydrogens with a carbon, you have a primary amine. So it's still bonded to two hydrogens and some carbon chain. So a secondary amine has two carbons attached to the nitrogen. So there's one hydrogen still there. And a tertiary will have three carbons attached to the nitrogen. So naming. Look at the structure, and if there's more than one carbon chain, you find the longest one, and that becomes the parent chain. All the others become side groups. From that longest carbon chain, you're going to drop the E. So if it was propane, you drop the E and identify the number of the carbon that the N is attached to, and add the number and the word amine at the end. If it's a primary amine, you're finished. If it's not, you have to identify the alkyl groups, the other two, or one, and put an N in front of it and then list them alphabetically. So this first structure is a primary amine. So we just have to name the carbon chain and which carbon is attached to the nitrogen. So if you look at this, we've got two carbons. So either way, it's going to be carbon number one, so we don't have to put in the number this time. But we were going to, two carbons is ethane, so we drop the E and add amine. So this structure becomes ethane, drop the E, amine, ethanamine. This structure is also a primary amine because there's two hydrogens, and this is three carbons long. So this is propane. So we're going to take off the E and add amine. So propane, amine. And the carbon that's attached to the nitrogen is the end carbon, so it's carbon number one. So this would be 1 propanamine. If the middle carbon, then this structure, here's your prop, here's your three carbon chain, but it's bonded to the middle carbon, so carbon number 2. This one would be called 2 propanamine. This structure, we have 2 carbons and 3 carbons. So this becomes the amine portion, and this becomes an N-alkyl portion. So this structure would be N-ethyl for the smaller carbon chain, and then this would be 1-propanamine, or N-ethyl propan 1-amine. Both ways are considered acceptable. So drawing amines, identify the root, write out the carbon chain, add an N to the number indicated in the suffix. If there's a prefix, add this group. If there's none or only one, add hydrogens to the nitrogen to give it 3 bonds. N-ethyl pentan 3-amine. So we know we have two carbon chains because we've got an N-ethyl, and then we've got your amine group. So what you're going to draw is you're going to draw your 5 carbons for your pent. The nitrogen is attached, carbon number 3. And then there's an ethyl group also attached to the nitrogen. And the other atom is a hydrogen. So make sure that that nitrogen has 3 bonds. In this case, there's a side group, an ethyl, and there's the longer carbon chain of 5. So the third atom must be a hydrogen. So physical properties of amines. The primary and secondary amines have an NH bond, which is very polar and capable of hydrogen bonding. Therefore, their boiling point is higher than alkanes and tertiary amines. As the primary and secondary amines can hydrogen bond with water and accept hydrogen bonds on the lone electron pairs on nitrogen, they are very soluble. Tertiary can also accept hydrogen bonds for water, therefore they're also soluble. Just remind you of the Lewis structure for nitrogen. So 3 bonds and a lone pair. That lone pair can accept hydrogen bonds from water. They have strong intermolecular forces, so the boiling points are relatively high, and a lot of energy is required to overcome them.